Howdy ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video, sending out a lot of love. This is Why Cosmic Horror is Hard to Make by Screened. So, shout out to Screen if they want to purge this video from the internet. And as always, send the video to your friends if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you enjoy, or not, it's okay. First two comments had me weak. It said, true cosmic horror is lying awake at night, staring up at the countless stars and wondering what the hell happened to the ceiling. And the other one is, ironically, Cthulhu, the most famous of the Lovecraftian monsters, is one of the few that have a definable shape, and most of them are literally indescribable. That is very facts. But in this video, we take a look at why cosmic horror, or Lovecraftian horror, is hard to adapt on screen because its visual complexity and abstraction. Is that the only definition of cosmic horror, or is there, or does Alien do things like Dead Space and like the xenomorphs and all that? Is that not technically cosmic horror, or would you classify cosmic and space horror as two different things? I don't really know. Anyways, we're on the road to 500,000. Let's go.
With the night sky, staring at the countless stars sprinkled over the black emptiness of space. As you kept looking, its vastness grew and invaded your mind, making you realize the scale of the expanding universe and how small you are in comparison, filling you with a dreadful emotion that can be hard to describe, as if you inadvertently peeked at something beyond yourself. That is what cosmic horror is about. Beyond the monsters, the violence, and the danger, this horror is about the awareness of the limits of your own humanity. Early 20th century writer H.P. Lovecraft wrote extensively on the subject, which is why the genre is also referred to as Lovecraftian horror. His stories often dealt with characters coming face to face with something beyond their understanding. As much as Lovecraft's works have inspired well-known writers such as Stephen King or Neil Gaiman, or even Junji Ito's mangas, his brand of horror has not often been successfully adapted to a visual medium. Unlike slasher movies, the
funny thing about Lovecraftian work, and I say this all the time for people who don't know or want to go research it and find more, that there was traces of H.P. Lovecraft making these entities about sort of a I guess I gotta get a little bit deep, so you know what, fuck it, let's get deep. Pretty much whatever he was drawing from consciousness was ancient from his imagination, and this goes more into like if the imagination is God and everything, but he was basically pulling from a wellspring of knowledge that was somehow had to do with the idea that these creatures or these entities in his Lovecraftian mythos were attached to a certain group of people, in the nicest way I've ever said it before. But if I don't mask it behind a bunch of words, pretty much Cthulhu and yada yada and etc. were supposed to be the representation of melanin's true power. Let's say that. I'll say it like that.
Possession horror, sci-fi horror, or monster movies, cosmic horror isn't as prevalent on the screen. So why is that? Why is cosmic horror harder to make?
Can you describe its form?
Oh yeah, Bird Box did seem like cosmic horror.
Let's take a look at an excerpt from H.P. Lovecraft's The Unnameable that clearly shows one of the biggest issues of adapting cosmic horror to the visual medium. Good God, Manton, but what was it? Those scars, was it like that? And I was too dazed to exult when he whispered back a thing I had half expected. No, it wasn't that way at all. It was everywhere. A gelatin, a slime, yet it had shapes, 1,000 shapes of horror beyond all memory. There were eyes, and the blemish. It was the pit, the maelstrom, the ultimate abomination. Carter. It was the Unnameable. As you were hearing the description of the Unnameable entity, you must have gone through a certain amount of mental gymnastics to try and form a clear picture of it in your head. The writer starts by
a gelatin, a slime, yeah, maelstrom, the ultimate abomination, thousands of shapes. There were eyes and a blemish. You know, this kind of makes me think about then how did Bloodborne make certain monsters? Well, I guess this goes above monsters, but it still is. Nah, I feel like not being able to translate it into a movie horror concept is a cop out.
By explaining,
May take a lot of animation. Or no, it really wouldn't. Actually, no, it wouldn't. It would not. You could do, what was it? The King in Yellow. What was it called? Man, I just talked about this a while back, but it was recent. It's one of Lovecraft's monsters, the Yellow King. Let me see. Let me look it up. Lovecraft. The Yellow. I'm pretty sure it's the Yellow King. The King in Yellow. Yeah, H.P. Lovecraft. The King in Yellow. That was made into a horror game. The Unspeakable One. The King in Yellow. Him is who not to be named. Yeah, Aster. And Great Old One. Haster, yeah. You could easily put Haster into a movie.
explaining its recognizable forms, but then it shifts beyond comprehension until it becomes less tangible and finally transforms into a concept. So how do you represent an unknowable or unnameable horror visually? It's hard to think or imagine something greater and bigger than yourself, let alone represent it for all to see. If you give it a shape and put it on screen, it's not unknowable anymore, and therefore you take away its power. A movie that maneuvers around the visual aspect is The Bird Box. In it,
yeah.
we know that there are monsters so frightening that they cause people to go mad and commit suicide. And at the same time, they are attractive to people that are already mad. At no point in the movie are we shown what the creatures look like. We only see what they cause. The biggest hints we get are the drawings made by mental patients. They are vague yet ominous and do not take away from the mystery. Omitting the entity altogether because of its visual complexity is a good route, but we can also find a good example of the opposite being done. The Thing is a movie that does a great job at showing us the creature, and yet by the end, we still don't know what the true form is, only its transitional phases as it makes itself look like people or animals.
Oh.
The visual effects, which were all practical and groundbreaking at the time, show us nightmarish and misshapen horrors that often lack the safety of an anthropomorphic figure.
Yeah.
The creature constantly changes.
Okay, so never mind. It was just like why cosmic horror is hard to make is just like the polar. I keep forgetting that, bro. I keep forgetting that I am a YouTuber and they do things like this where it pulls you into a video, but it has been done on screen. Why did that just catch me?
We can't define it. We are presented with an
I was like, I
entity that
know
we
I've
can't
seen
understand,
movies that did
or
this.
whose goals we can't comprehend, even as it tries to look and sound like one of us. The Thing succeeds in representing cosmic horror, not because of the use of tentacles, a calling card
bro, I
of the
have
genre,
never seen The
but because
Thing.
it honors the changing characteristics of the literary style. Just like the description of the unnameable, it can't be pinned down to one thing. It's several.
I would never watch. I would never watch this. I would never
Cosmic
watch
horror
The Thing, bro.
resides
It's
deeply
not a
in the
chance.
abstract.
Not a chance.
If you recall the excerpt from earlier, the unnameable beings' descriptions are deliberately elusive.
Sacred
The only
geometry.
anchor in the sea of the intangible is what the descriptions evoke in the characters, or in us. The reaction of being faced with the incomprehensible leads the character to look inwards to make sense of the complex puzzle of emotions they are left with.
That's some sacred geometry.
The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little, but someday the piecing together of the associated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality, and of our frightful position therein, that we shall either go mad from the revelation, or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age.
Oh, that was a quote from him in the Call of Cthulhu. See, damn. He was an occultist, man. He's one of us. You know, I want to hear this quote again, and then I'm going to say what I have to say, because this was clean. Hold on.
straining in its own direction,
The science
have
is
hitherto harmed us little. But someday the piecing together of the associated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality, and of our frightful position therein, that we shall either go mad from the revelation, or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age.
Yeah. I like that quote because I feel like it's not the end all be all of understanding, but in a way quotes like that and what he was saying at his time are literally the things realized and recognized by people way before his time, like ancient civilizations where they hide truths like that, because I feel like that's where it heads there's this thing called the Great Reset, but it'd be too much to get into. And it's just like, bro, I came to that realization too. I feel like everyone who just thinks, just these natural born modern day philosophers, we all think in that regard, because I've thought about that too. You know, they're all racing towards something, but like they're racing towards a thing that's already finished.
Imagine trying to portray the emotions in the previous passage on the film. Existential dread is an emotion that is difficult to explain. It's a feeling.
I think the Twilight Zone does a great job of cosmic horror. I think the whole series of Twilight Zone is cosmic horror. There's certain episodes that are way better at it, but I think the entire thing itself
that we rarely experience in comparison to happiness, fear, or anger. On top of its rarity, not everyone can verbalize it or express it in a way that others can understand it. It is often misunderstood or interpreted as something else.
Yeah.
Therein lies the hard task of representing those emotions on film.
Yeah, it's almost like because you're the only one that could ever experience your own consciousness. So, yeah. It's crazy because I just watched a video of the trouble with transporters, and that's exactly what he said. And I forgot how true that is. Is like, there's this quote or this saying that I always like to take with me, and it's like, even if someone else sees it too, you're the only one that saw what you saw. That gives you something to think about. Like, you say to your friend, hey, did you see that? And they go, yeah, I did. But at the end of the day, you both still seen something different.
And making the audience share those feelings as well.
Just like the my red's not your
cosmic
red.
horror are similar to the genre's monsters. Abstract, not fully formed, hard to harness, hard to describe. It's difficult to show the introspection of a character coming to terms with the fragility of their own humanity. This type of inner monologue is usually best explored in literature, but an intimate inwards realization can be done without having the character say anything. Like in the scene in Annihilation, where the main character is face to face with a being that is emulating her. She slowly begins to understand it without the use of dialogue. Sometimes the best thing to do is to let the visuals speak for themselves. If showing a monster can handicap your movie, so can explaining it. It's like assigning a shape to something that doesn't have any. It's all about balance. Some movies might get the visuals right, but they lack a cohesive or poignant story, and are missing a sense of foreboding or dread. In other cases, the setting is perfect, the mood is just right, but the effects are laughable and far from frightening. If you want to explore cosmic horror but don't have a big budget, the Bird Box's example is one to replicate. Don't show the creatures and let people's imaginations do the work. If you're lucky enough to have a bigger budget and have a lot of creativity, practical effects like those in The Thing or The Void can do the trick. Just don't forget the second and equally important half of the equation when creating the story. Good cosmic horror balances the external aesthetic of a sci-fi movie, but with the internal feel of an existential film. People are so hung up with the aesthetics, the tentacles, and the monster that they fail to explore the bigger questions, because that's even more complex. They themselves don't understand it. Not enough movies go into the abstract of the themes. They stay at the surface level with the visuals, and it's completely understandable. What is the limit of our humanity?
That looked like the ink blot test book in the ocean.
What happens when we go beyond it? If something is hard to think about, then it's hard to verbalize. And if it's hard to verbalize, then it's near impossible to show. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. We invite you to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Until next time.
That was dope. So I see pulling back to this, I see what he was talking about in reference to why it's hard to make or show, because at the end of the day, it's almost like cosmic horror is literally in the eyes of the person. It's whatever your imagination would take you to being completely undescribable. Like, in a way, it's like if you came across some undescribable thing, it's like to show that on film, it would literally probably, in a way, it would make, like the way Bird Box did it, is it rose so many different questions for so many different people. Everyone was wondering what the monsters look like. Everyone had so many different perspectives. And I think that is the ultimate thing to cosmic horror, is it's, like he said, it's difficult to show on screen, basically because everyone is going to see it in a different way. And like to make a concept that's undescribable portray well on screen, it has to make everyone question it in a way where it's like, oh, that was good, and not for someone to not understand it or not want their mind to go that far. Like, there's so many little aspects I see that you would have to tie together to make it make sense. And like, that's why Bird Box works so well, because it was simple for everyone to understand. It was like, okay, we draw them in, look, there's something making people go wild. People are thinking, like, it sounded like the one black guy that they were with, he knew so much about it. Like, he was like, oh, he heard about these creatures, blah blah, etc., yada yada. And like, or was it him? It was whoever the one guy was that said he knew all about. It was in their community in Bird Box, if you ever seen it. And he like knew about the entities or something. Or they were like, how'd you know so much about them? And then the mad guy who came in. But then when he put the drawings down on the table, it was like, that was the next technique, was they were showing that whatever the creatures were, they took many different shapes and form. So then it was like, that was the grabbing part of uniting everyone in Bird Box. But like, still, it's like, okay, it gave you a little bit of a level of understanding where you can all agree. It's like, okay, so they're all seeing like their worst fears, or maybe someone they loved, which I think the girl driving the car and then like committed suicide, she seen her, was it like mom in the street or something like that? I can't remember what she seen, but it's like when they gave those little breadcrumbs, it slowly started uniting everybody watching the movie, because we still all never seen the creature. And then like how he explained the thing working, it's like all like that. It's like, for them to portray cosmic horror, they're gonna have to do it in a way where they can unite everyone on a front. And like, it's like someone like me, or you know, maybe I wouldn't understand one, but like maybe I like see the beauty of it, because I could just see the beauty of the work and huge concepts like the Lovecraftian horror. But then to someone who doesn't understand that, they may just get bored or turn off the movie. So I get it, but that's dope. Much love and Moonlight, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Tell me what you think down below. Peace.